Model Railroad enthusiast, welcome back to the layout, the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO Scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 22 of season 2024. Happy Father's Day to everyone, by the way. Hope you're having a great day and a great weekend, and enjoy your time celebrating fathers. Make sure you subscribe and like this channel. That would be much appreciated. Today we're going to be taking a look at scenery forms for the Taggart Mountain, one of the most iconic areas of the Evanston sub that I definitely wanted to capture as closely as possible. Last week, if you recall, I did put in this bridge built from Central Valley and Walther's kits. Was able to get that in and everything working properly. And I knew one thing I was going to need to do was put the scenery then around the piers and the abutments so that everything kind of fit together and looked as prototypical and as real as possible. All right, so now this week was putting in all the forms. Going to put in some cardboard webbing, and on top of that, some rosin paper for this whole area here that represents the Taggart Mountain tunnels and the Weber River cutting through. Includes not only the tunnels, but a couple of bridges that we'll be looking at here in just a moment. Now, I really wanted to make sure that I got this to look as closely as possible to the actual Taggart Mountains. So the very first thing I wanted to do is zoom in and do some research on the actual prototype Taggart Mountain. And here you can see a satellite view. You have the mountain right there that the arrow's pointing at. You get a little bit closer look here. And some of the things I wanted to feature, one, well, first of all, you can see the bridges there. There's the through bridge. There's the plate girder bridge. Now, everything on the layout is going to be like a mirror image of this. So everything's kind of swapped around. But here you have the Taggart Mountain. And some of the features I wanted to make sure I included was, of course, the Weber River going through it. Also wanted to make sure I had this little crook. It goes straight along here, and then it takes a little bend there, and it goes off to the right. On the layout, it's going to be off to the left. So I kind of wanted to get that feature in there. And then if you notice, all the rock faces are on the one side, and then the other side is much more of a gradual and not so much rock. And then, of course, you have the mountain there that basically was blasted away in order to put in the Interstate 84. So I was taking a look at that area that's been blasted off, and one thing I noticed is that the cut is kind of at a slant. It's not completely vertical. If you look at this view right here, you can see it's a little bit of a slant there. And then also notice that there's kind of a ledge. It's in two. Here you have they must have blasted off the top section and then blasted off the bottom section from there. So there's like a little ledge going there. It's not, at first I thought it was just like a line, but there's actually a ledge between the two. Now here's what the mountain looked like before they blasted off the end of it. And this was actually from 1869, where they're actually building the railroad through. So you can see they actually have a railroad going around it. They don't even have the tunnels dug, but the Weber River goes around that They blasted off the end of it, and then they rerouted the river so that they could have room for the interstate. Now, I'm not sure what these diagonal lines are, if that's lines of stratification or if that's the holes that they drilled for blasting. Any of you geologists out there, let me know what you think about that. But I'm going to try and have that all as part of the feature. Now, of course, here's the area that I'm needed to transform. I have the cardboard strips all cut and ready to go. And I printed out a full-size picture of that rock face. And if you can tell, I've already swapped it around to fit. Remember, I have a mirror image here. You can see the bridges there. And then you have the kind of where the river there, if you look real closely. But anyway, I cut this out, and then I took a piece of hardboard, and I laid it on there and just traced it, and then I drew a line for the ledges. Okay, now my idea here is how am I going to get this big cut, this blasted off portion, put on the end of the layout. So I didn't want to put any forms in until I figured out exactly how this was going to lay. Right, once I got that drawn out, then I went ahead and cut it out with a jigsaw, and then used some scrap pieces to kind of glue it together with the ledge, so that we had kind of a ledge. I raised it up a little bit so I could put a little slant there between the two on the ledge, so the ledge wouldn't be perfectly level. And then when I installed it, I put a little skewer there. I don't know if you can see the skewer there if you look closely, so that when I put it in, it kind of was at an angle. And then I attached it to the fascia. There you can see the back of it. Sorry about my fingers there. Alright, so I did a lot, spent almost a day putting this all together so that we had this in place. Now, of course, this will have plaster over it and then rock molds also, but you can kind of see how it fits the feature. And again, all this was done with Google Maps. I also use the Google Earth. Have some of the same pictures. Right, but I was able to put that in. Then the second thing I did was try to, on the backdrop, draw in where the scenery was going to go. So you kind of do this and again, having this piece in place kind of gave me a good idea where exactly to draw the line. Now, one thing you notice about this is that you have two different slopes, a steeper slope on the right-hand side and then a more gentle slope on the left-hand side. So that feature is on the cut at the end, and then I wanted the mountain, then the whole entire mountain, to reflect that same type of grade. And on the right, and here, if you notice, I kind of went up over the upper level. I'll show you how I did that there in a little bit. After I drew this in, I had the line drawn in a little bit too much of a difference between the two slopes. Now here I went ahead, and the idea is that the mountain's going to go up onto the upper level there, but not go above it. And then this slope here actually turned out, when I looked at it, it was not quite steep enough. So I redrew it. Now, of course, I used a marker. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that extra line there that's going to show up. I'd have to paint over it or something. But the steep slide is where the rock faces are. So the right-hand side there is going to be all rock molds. Left-hand side is going to be more of a gentle slope. and we'll have some rocks, but we'll have, you know, ground coverings. All right, once I got that all figured out, then I went ahead and started putting in the vertical pieces of cardboard, and added more than I really needed. Usually about only, you know, 6 inches between each one, but wanted to get a little bit more in here with the area here around the bridge. And then I also had the issue of the drop down section. But again, you can see I built it around the piers. That's why it's very important to do the piers and the bridge ahead of time, not only around the piers, but also around the abutment. And then this is the drop down section. So this is going to drop down. So I wanted to put a piece of cardboard on both sides of that. So once I get all the plaster in, then I'm going to need to be cutting it here so that the section can still drop down. So right now everything's going to be done in place, even though that section is going to drop down. So I then did put some cross pieces in for the section to the left of the bridge, and I started to do the vertical pieces here. And as I got this, I was thinking, this is not the way it is. It's too steep right there where the tunnel portals are. So I was like, I need to go back one so that this was more of a gentle slope right there. Again, I'm looking at the pictures of the actual mountain. I just like kind of after looking at this, realized that that was not, those tunnel portals on the left hand side were not in the right spot, so I needed to move those out a little bit. One thing when you're doing things, it's better to do it over and do it right than just say, well, that's good enough. So here you can see I moved it out a little bit more, and now you have a more of a gentle slope on the left side and then the steep slope on this side. And again, you notice I put them very close together because I do have some wood supports in there, but I want to make this as strong as possible because there's a pretty big expanse that's going to have to hold the plaster. Definitely looks a lot better there. I did even some more adjustments, a little bit more. If you notice that one piece kind of sticks up a little bit from the tunnel portal. But this is then what I ended up with. Now we have the horizontal pieces in as well. Definitely like using the cardboard webbing. More so than, I've never actually used foam. I have not ever carved foam for a mountain, but I really like using this cardboard webbing. I did a lot of with screen wire. This cardboard webbing's a much easier way to go, just because you can have some flexibility in actually creating the form. Now, one thing that you notice, if we get back to that, I did try to put the little bend in the mountain. You can see it definitely was more of a gentle all the way through. Turned out to be pretty strong. I think it's going to hold the plaster pretty well. I may have to put in some more supports eventually, but this is what it all kind of looked like. There's the bridge. That's ready to go back in. Again, more of a gentle slope on this side. That's going to be some ground cover on there. And then this right side is more of a steep. And there you can see the little crook I put in, the little bend there at the top. I wanted to emulate that as much as I could. So here it goes straight, and then it kind of makes a turn there where all those come together at that support post. We'll see how it actually looks when I get the plaster on and everything. But again, it's going to be some rock faces on this side and then more of ground foam on the other. And then the next step was putting the rosin paper on top of the cardboard webbing. This definitely gives you a much better look at what the final shape is going to be. And once I put the plaster on, the paper will be more down onto the webbing. So it looks a little puffy right now. But you still have that crook there, the bend, and the Weber River and everything. I think it's looking pretty good. Now, I have everything kind of glued in place there, so right now I cannot do that drop-down section. So, of course, what did I do? While I was cleaning up, I plugged the vacuum into the light circuit, which I should not have done. It overloaded that circuit, and I blew a fuse, or tripped the breaker. Here you see the tunnel portals. Probably have vegetation there to cover the bottom of that, or I might extend it with some more plastic. But anyway, of course, I was cleaning up and plugged my vacuum into the light circuit, which already has a bunch of lights on it. So I tripped that circuit breaker, and I had to, I lifted out the top section. You can see it along the river. Lifted out the top section, took the backdrops off, and then I could only open the top half of the door and just jammed my right arm down into the panel and reached down, cut my hand a couple places, but I was able to get the lights back on. Once I get the plaster and ground foam and everything on there, I'll cut it so that can in fact drop down. All right, but everything looks pretty good, I think. You can see how the scenery is going to fit all around the piers of the bridge. This is going to look pretty cool, I think. Going across the bridge and then into the tunnels of the Taggart Mountain. These are the final tunnels on the layout. And the addition of these two tunnels brings the total tunnels up to 8. There are 8 tunnels total on this layout. These are the last 2. I am able to access the tunnels from underneath. Before I ran these trains, I did get my bright boy in there and clean off the track. Always good to get the double stacks and auto racks through the tunnels, since they're the tallest cars, have the most issues with clearance, and everything goes through cleanly with no problems, even a little bit of extra space. So that worked out great. This next week coming up, I'll be putting some plaster on here, some plaster gauze will go on, as well as a coat of plaster on top of that. That's probably all the further I'll get, since I also have an operating session coming up on Saturday, so we'll need to spend some time getting everything ready for that. So I won't get any of the plaster painted, I don't believe, but hopefully we'll get the plaster on and then get everything ready for the operating session. So the auto racks and the double stacks made it through without any problem. And here we see some 2 more trains going through. We'll catch them coming from the other direction. That's going to be Devil's Slide in the background. There's going to be an interstate going over the tracks here, just to the left of the river. Be some pull through truss bridges right there. Bunch of rock faces. This is going to look really cool. So look forward to next week's update with Plaster covering on all this, and then the week after that, we'll get the ground foam on and everything, get the rock molds. Hopefully I'll have the rock molds installed next week also. But we'll get it all covered up, and then beyond that, I'll put in another bridge here and get this completed through Devil's Slide. Some more double stacks and a coal train. Pretty exciting stuff. Look forward to seeing how it all turns out. Make sure you stay tuned. Maybe doing some live video throughout the week. We'll see how things go. And hopefully maybe some live video of the op session on Saturday. Want to thank everyone for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for more. Have a great Father's Day, everybody. Take care.